Hello, boys and girls. So today we're gonna draw a warm and cool fall tree. So I'm gonna find a blank page in my sketchbook. I like to draw on the back of pages if I can. And then I'm gonna turn it portrait style. So it's gonna be tall like a portrait. Now we're gonna start this tree with a pencil, and then we're gonna outline it in Sharpie and then add colors to it. So to begin my tree, I like to add lines to it, and I'm gonna be doing all kinds of lines. There'll be lines that go in all different directions, up and down, side to side, at a diagonal, and that's what's gonna help us to make our tree. So the first thing I'm gonna draw is I'm gonna do the start of my tree, and I'm gonna start with a letter. And this letter is gonna be the beginning of my tree, and then I'm gonna grow the branches from there. So the first thing I'm gonna draw is a letter Y. So I'm gonna draw my V right in the middle, and then I'm gonna draw the stem all the way down to the end of the page. Now, I know it doesn't look like much yet, but it will. Now, because I love to fill up the whole space, I'm gonna continue my lines off of the page. So now I'm gonna continue to grow my branch off to the edge. Now, don't worry if it's messy or it doesn't look that great. We're gonna be covering it up with Sharpie, and the more organic, the better it's gonna look. So the more natural. Now I'm gonna start adding branches. So I'm gonna go up from the middle and add a branch all the way to the top, just like that. Now, before I get too crazy on the branches, I'm gonna go ahead and start at the bottom. So I have where my tree is gonna be, but now I'm gonna start with the land. So I'm gonna start to draw some lines going from side to side. Now your lines can be straight, or they could be wavy, they could be curved, whatever you'd like. So now I'm gonna start building my layers of land. So I start near the bottom, and I'm just drawing a diagonal line, and it's okay if it crosses my branch, because remember, we're gonna be tracing and outlining and all kinds of stuff. So this is just the underdrawing of our picture. So then I add another line going off to the side, and I like to start in the middle and go off the edge. I might do one more. All right, so now I'm getting to where the tree's gonna begin, so I wanna finish it off with a straight line. Okay, just like that. So there's my land, and now the rest of it is gonna be my branches and my trees. So I wanted to draw that first, that way I know where my branches are gonna stop. So now there's not really a plan to how our branches go. We just want them to grow up. So all my lines now are gonna be at a diagonal. That's because the branches are gonna grow towards the sun, because that's how the tree feeds itself, is it gets all of its energy from the sun. So I'm gonna just kind of make sure that all my branches are going towards the top. So now I'm gonna add branches, and I'm just gonna bring them off to the edge if they can, and if they don't go off to the edge, that's okay too. So I start by adding a few more lines on each side. And then I'm gonna draw smaller lines. So just imagine how a branch grows. Just branches off, and I want to make sure I touch another line because I'm creating shapes. So I'm adding branches, making sure they go off the edge. Now I can draw as many branches as I want to. So now I'm just making them touch each other. That way I have spaces to color in. Okay. So make sure all my branches are touching something. They're touching either the edge or another branch. Okay. Now to finish it off, because the fall, the trees are turning colors, but the leaves are still on the trees a little bit. So I'm gonna add a curved line or bumpy line to draw where my leaves are gonna go. So I'm just gonna draw some C's and some U's and just finish off this bottom, just like that. So now everything above this wavy line and above is gonna be in one color scheme, and everything below is gonna be in another. All right, so now I'm gonna switch to Sharpie, and this is where you're really gonna start to see a really cool tree. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to outline my branches. Now, remember, we're making a tree, so we want it to look as natural as possible, so don't try to be too perfect. And I'm gonna taper, that means I'm gonna start really small and skinny, and I'm gonna get wider at the bottom because it's the tree trunk. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by outlining my lines. There's no going back now. And then I'm gonna thicken them up. Now, if you want to put a little extra scrap paper underneath so you don't get marker on the table or on another page, you could do that. And if you use crayons, it doesn't really bleed through the other side. All right, so now I'm gonna start tapering my lines. So I'm gonna start with the trunk, and I want it to start off skinny and then go off real big. So I'm just adding a line on each side and just making it thicker and coloring it in between. So remember, a tree trunk is real thick at the bottom. That's where it has to grab to the, grows its roots and grabs to the ground. And I can make my tree trunk as thick as I want. So as long as it's skinnier at the top and thicker at the bottom. Now this looks crazy, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to make this nice and skinny and then match it up the thickness of that branch. So I'm gonna start off skinny and I'm gonna get it bigger near the bottom. So I'm tapering my lines. They start off skinny and then they get thicker. So I'm gonna do that with all my lines now, all the big ones. I'm gonna start off skinny at the end, and then they taper to big. So skinny and big. All right, so all my lines are tapered. Now I'm gonna start to outline the rest of my landscape. Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some pattern at the bottom, just so I have more spaces to color in. So I'm just gonna add some stripes. So I'm happy with that, and next is color. All right, boys and girls, now it's time for me to add color. So I have my table all set up for painting. If you don't have paints, you can always use markers, color pencils, or crayons if you want to. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to paint. So we're gonna be using the warm colors on one half and the cool colors on the other half. It doesn't matter what side you do the warm colors or cool colors, it's up to you. But since we're doing a fall landscape or fall tree, I'm gonna do the warm colors in the tree and then do the cool colors on the ground. So my paints are already separated into warm and cool colors. We have the warm side on this side, that is red, orange, and yellow. You could also use pink because pink is part of the red family. And then the cool colors are green, blue, and purple. So those are the colors I'm going to use. You might also see me blending two colors, or when we use watercolors, they might naturally blend too. I also have some other colors, black, brown, and white. If I want to make some of the colors lighter, I might use some white. If I want to make some of the colors darker, I might use black. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting. Now I have my salt shaker here as well because I like to add salt when it's still wet because the salt will react with the watercolor and make some really cool little spots on my painting. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna take my brush, make sure I dip it in the water, and then I'm gonna prime my colors by adding a little drop in each one just to get them nice and wet so they work really, really well. So I'm gonna do that with my warm colors, and then when I'm ready to do my cool colors, I'll do the same. All right, so I'm gonna start painting. So I dip my brush, tap it a few times, and then I start painting. Now, if I wanna change colors, I always rinse my brush, and then I tap it into a new color. Notice I'm just blending the colors together. And then while still wet, I sprinkle a little bit of salt. And then I'm gonna do the same thing all over my tree. Now that I have my warm colors, now I'm gonna do the cool colors. So clean my brush, prime them a little bit. And now it's time for my cool colors. All right, boys and girls, so there's my fall tree using the warm colors and the cool colors. Some of it mixed on its own, and I'm okay with that because it's a painting, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But I hope you guys had fun. I know I did. When it's all dry, then I'll wipe off the salt and I'll close it up. But I'm not gonna close it up while it's still wet. I'm gonna let it dry just like that. All right, guys, hope you had a good one. Bye.